Are you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics? Then you're in the right place. Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This is the RoboZone Podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 43rd episode of the RoboZone Podcast. This podcast is for Tuesday, January 9th. In this episode, we have Andrew, we have Brandi, and we have Scott, and we have a new game to talk about, Power Up. So let's get to the interview. I hope you enjoy it.
The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
So welcome, guys. How are you doing tonight?
Very good. Thanks, Pete.
Good.
Awesome. How you doing, dude?
Good. So it's been a very long time since I've podcasted, and I enjoyed it. I missed podcasting. I missed talking to you guys and doing the podcast, but the holidays were nice. So did everyone have a nice holiday break?
Yeah, I slept.
I'm still not sure what that whole sleep thing is.
And we won't until April.
I spent my Christmas break planning the workshops, so.
And we're gonna get right into that here in a second. So I'm glad you guys and tonight's the first build night for some people like myself. It was first build night. I know some teams have had a couple days that they've been building. So the first thing I wanted to talk about tonight was Kickoff. So Brandi, I was with you at Kettering University. Scott, did you go to Kettering for Kickoff? I saw you there, but did you stay the whole day for Kickoff?
No, we left at noon. We sat there right behind you at the reveal, and we also got there early so we could listen to Mark Taylor and Clint Bollinger there give their talks. We split our team up. I had a great time.
Yeah, I thought someone was kicking my seat during that whole presentation, so now I know who it is.
Time.
I was so enthralled with Clinton and the knowledge he was expressing that I didn't pay attention to the guy kicking me behind the seat. And Andrew, where did you spend Kickoff this year?
This was my first year at Kettering Kickoff.
You were there. You didn't say hi?
Yeah.
I'm crushed.
Yep.
I didn't see you, but I did have my son there with me and my wife, so I kind of spent it with them. I said hi to a few people. I was kind of over on the right with my team, and we were kind of in and out. We were done by noon, so we did spend the morning at Kettering, but then we went back to a secret Delphi location.
In the back.
I don't know. It's a Delphi building, but there's no sign on it. So I think they're kind of stealthy, and then we couldn't see things. They had to block things off inside the shop so we couldn't see stuff.
Oh, wow. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So before we talk about Power Up, right, for Kickoff, I want to talk about the workshops that were the second day at Kettering Kickoff and put on by the Engine Nerds. One of the reasons I wanted to have Brandi on here was to personally thank her myself, because I am that much, my team, our rookie team, is that much further in our build than we would be. I think we saved a good 3 days of build time, thanks to Clinton and Brandi and the Engine Nerds for putting on that workshop that just yesterday, and it was a long day. Brandi, thank you so much for doing that for us and doing it for, how many teams did you have at the workshop yesterday?
We started off with 38 teams at the beginning of the day. So, we started off with 39 and 38 of them stuck around. So we ended up with 38 teams staying for the build.
And it was an amazing. So, Brandi, I know you've talked about it in past episodes of the podcast, but like a 2-3 minute excerpt of what yesterday was about.
Sure. General concept of it is that teams bring their AndyMark kit parts chassis with them, along with all of the electrical components and programming components from the kit parts chassis, and they leave by, most teams left by 6 o'clock last night with a moving chassis and a lot of knowledge about how to make your mechanical systems more effective, your electrical systems more durable, and how to deploy default code. We even go as far as to teach people how to hook up to the driver's station, flash their radio, flash their Rio, and get ready for competitions with some strategy, some team organization, some scouting, and some awards applications.
And I want to send another thank you to the Engine Nerds for RoboZone. I gave them one of our cameras, and we have all of that audio that we're going to be using in the next couple of weeks from your teachings that you did on the side, not with the build side itself, but the actual seminars you put on for those lucky people that were able to attend and start learning about awards. And there was so much that you covered. I think I have 4 or 5 hours of video, so we'll be chopping that up using audio.
Our seminars, just the seminars, our scouting seminar, awards, and then team organization, those ran about 5 hours. Clint's Strategy Dictates Design seminar is about 2.5 hours, and then the build was probably about 3 hours. So all in all, we were at Kettering University from 7 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock p.m. yesterday.
And anyone who attended that from the Michigan area, all we can do is thank you and thank you and thank you and thank you and continue to thank you all the way through.
We definitely don't do it for the thanks. We do it for the success that all the teams will hopefully experience once they've left with a greater idea of how to play the game and a robot that'll get them through.
So just to validate how much the kids liked not only the build, because we had a working robot that worked wirelessly when we left, which is amazing, and they were talking about the strategy that Clinton was talking about, and I had kids for my first build night bring in sheets of paper of everything that you guys talked about yesterday, the scoring breakdowns before I printed what you gave me out for them. They had it broken down of how many exact points that our team, just our team within the Alliance, can do if we did certain things. So you guys...
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was
First
amazing.
is all about inspiring people, and that's really what we hope to do. And our students, a lot of people don't realize the amount of work that the engineered students do behind the scenes. While Clinton and I are up there talking about our workshop, they are sorting the kit apart. I mean, you've been there, Andy's been there, Scott's been there. You guys know that you show up with boxes of stuff. A couple of hours later, you're like, oh, look, here's only the stuff that I need. And it's sorted in labeled boxes. And somebody's here to help me do it and work hand in hand with me. So without all of the engineers, like I literally did not get to see a single robot move at our workshop because I was in teaching the seminars about organization, and our students and mentors have gotten so great at working with teams that everyone was finished with their robot before I even finished talking about how to create an agenda.
Well, I'll get you some of that video and I'll post it in the Slack for you in your Slack
Awesome.
So that you can have it for ever.
Thanks, Steve.
But it was amazing, and anyone that's in the state of Michigan, this is open to any team next year. They're too late for this year, but for next year, register. So.
Well, and if you weren't there and you want to check out Clint's Strategy Dictates Design, is History of Simplicity from Saturday morning, the awards, the scouting, and then my team organization workshop, all of those PowerPoint presentations are online. The scoring breakdown that we did for the game at the event is online, as well as all of the robot execution strategies that we came up with during the Strategy Dictates Design seminar are all available on the Engineers website at www.team2337.com/engi, E-N-G-I, help desk.
And we'll put it in the show notes just so we can give them that link too, because I was already there today downloading that stuff. So,
Perfect.
To use for my team. All right, so thank you again, Clinton, Brandi, and 2337, and anyone that helped you put on that workshop for the rookies. That was, and not just the rookies, but some 2- and 3-year teams. Scott's been there and Andrew's been there, so thank you for putting that on for us. I can't thank you.
You're very welcome, and now you need to go out and earn success like we told you, so that next year at Clint's History of Simplicity, your robot is the next one up there.
We will try. All right, so everyone's been waiting for the reveal. We've talked about it on prior podcast episodes about what it was going to be, and I don't think it was anything of what anyone believed it would be. So I'm going to start with you, Andrew. Was it what you expected it to be, or did it just blow the doors off?
It's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Of course.
I'm just totally kidding. I had no clue. I had no idea what it was going to be, but it seems really exciting. All of the feedback I've gotten since then, everything I've read, everyone loves it. I haven't heard lots of moaning and groaning about the game. Everyone seems really excited about the game. I'm excited about it. It's really interesting to have some kind of like, I'm really interested in the timing, right? Like,
Yep.
how you score points by time, and the game really seems really interesting to wrap your head around strategically. So it's been fun.
And Scott,
There's a lot of math
Oh,
to do this year.
Yes, agreed. And thank you.
Which I love because I'm
Yeah.
a math teacher.
Everyone likes. If you're in STEM and you don't like math, there's something wrong. I mean, I think we all love math to a certain point, and then sometimes it can just be brain overload. But Scott, do you agree with Andrew? Was what you expected, or did it just come catch you from the side, or?
Oh, it totally caught me off guard. I was looking for coins. I was looking for climbing. I was looking for stairs. We were already coming up with claw mechanisms to pick up a coin and put it in a slot, and this was none of that. So what took me by surprise the most was the time aspect. You got to hold that switch or scale, which is going to catch people off guard, just the name, because a couple years ago we had to scale the wall, and now we're scaling by putting things into a bucket. So, and then the other twist is the climb with just a short little bar. You're going to have to come up with an alternate way. You can't just put your hook up and go straight up anymore. You're going to have to figure out a way to work with other robots and climb. I do find it really, really amusing. I was watching one of the fun videos on YouTube, and they were referring to the 2010 Engine Nerds robot that actually had a climb mechanism, and then they had another bar on the back so that another robot could climb up their back.
And
Oh,
we're gonna talk a little bit about that. I got a couple.
That was cool.
There may be videos on the Engineers YouTube channel of that very robot from 2010 that may have quadrupled in views over the last 2 days.
Yep, there's a lot of us talking about that robot already. That's for sure.
So, Brandi, to tell us a little bit of how you guys think. Yeah, I know you and Clinton kind of have the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the same brain. So, what? Because you guys I finish each other's sentences. I've seen it in action. So, what do you think about this year's game with Power Up?
So I think, so many people associate Clint and I together because, like you said, we're kind of two halves of a whole, but we are also very opposite of each other, right? But first, Power Up is definitely an engineer's game, right? Clinton is one of the most strategic, quick thinking, on his feet people, and that is the reason that he's such a phenomenal drive coach and such a great coach for the engineers. And I think that at a first glance, this game looks very basic. It's like you score on the switch, you score on the scale, you climb, boom, done, right? But there are so many nuances to this game that make this game so very interesting. There are a lot of calculations that if you sit down and do them will be imperative to your success on this team. Another thing that the engineers really like about this is the fact that we're well known for kind of taking a different approach to looking at the problem and saying, how can we go about solving this in a different way? And this game definitely provides us with the opportunity for our students to shine in the skills that they have in coming up with unique solutions to problems. Also, because we do work so hard in the first community to assist others and to mentor other people, we really like that there is a definite skill for a minimum competitive concept that will be very valuable to any alliance. Now, will it win districts? Probably. Will it win stakes? We don't know. Will it win worlds? Likely not. But it's going to give teams who have either had trouble getting success or are just getting started really that introduction to what it's like to participate in the first robotics competition competitively.
Agreed.
So I have a little slew of questions, and we're limited on time because everyone's tired and we want to get some sleep tonight. So this podcast a little bit shorter for tonight, and then we can talk strategy in the next couple of weeks when people start building the robots. But Andrew, the one of the questions I had for all you is, what do you think the hardest thing is going to be? What the one element that, because Clinton taught us over the weekend for the strategy dictates design, that a rookie team like mine, and I'm the only rookie team here, you want to do something really well, and Clinton said you want to make sure that you move an auton past the line. That's free 5
Agreed.
points, right? So what is if you have a team out there, say it's a second to fourth year team, what do you think the hardest aspect, or what's the most difficult thing that's going to be for them to do in this game?
Oh wow! So I guess
that's a doozy, but
yeah. So I guess it's probably a toss-up between either climbing at the end or scoring on the scale, right? So the scale is a little ways up there. You've got to build a mechanism that gets that cube all the way up, which could be a pretty complicated mechanism. Or it could be really simple. It depends on how your design comes together and how simple you can do it. But those to me come off as the most challenging too. If I had to choose the most challenging one, I don't know. I guess I would say you want to be able to contribute in the climb somehow. If you can find a way to contribute in that climb, there are some simple ways to attach to that rung. I would, and there's some talk about looking at the 2007 game and taking a peek at what they did at the end of those matches. Just a little hint. There's been some talk about some alternative ways to get above that 12-inch line. So I would probably say it's between one of those two.
And Scott, do you feel the same way, or do you think there's a different aspect?
No, I think that's it is definitely a challenge. I've heard a couple different ideas on how to accomplish it, but until we start testing it, I'm not sure which way we're going to go.
And Brandi?
Okay. So
I knew this was gonna get good. I'm gonna go get some popcorn for this one.
So I'll keep it short for you, Pete. I really encourage teams to take a few moments and read the rules, especially the section of the rules where they define what this scale is and what the scale is not.
Yep.
This portion of the directions is definitely going to designate whether or not the strategy that you are thinking about whether or not it works, whether or not it's going to be effective, and whether or not you are going to be a contributing member of an alliance.
Section 3.
So what teams need to realize is that, the engineers really like to look at our strategy and look forward with it. We like to look at what's going to win districts, what's going to win states, what's going to get you in the eliminations at your division at championship, what's going to be on Einstein. And frankly, being a member on an alliance that cannot climb is not going to get you very far. Yeah. However, when you're trying to come up with these very creative methods to get those climbs, please remember simple is always better. I know that a lot of people are looking at the Engineers robot from 2010. Our YouTube views show that. However, do any of you on the podcast right now know how many times in the entire season of 2010, districts, states, championship, and off-season, how many times a suspension occurred?
I do.
You do. How many?
Twice. 1.5.
More than that. It was 4. But 4 times out of all of the events, out of the hundreds of matches that we played, 4 times did it happen. It is really easy to remember the success of that happening at States when it happened, and it was amazing. The first time it happened all over the world, the interns were the first ones to do it. It's really awesome. And granted, I think a lot of people weren't ready for our design and they didn't design their design for our design. But you need to remember that it's hard and it's a difficult task. So for teams who are low resource teams and teams who do not have the machining capability to do those kind of things, may want to consider just climb yourself. Just climb yourself.
So
Vamp bot.
Yes.
Clinton and I were actually mentors for Team 1243 back in 2007, and we built a ramp bot. We saw a lot of ramp bots. We went to the Chicago Regional back when there were still regionals and played with teams who were fantastic, phenomenal teams that built ramp bots, and it's so hard. Because now, in the case of the 2010 robot and the case of ramp bots, you are relying on someone else's ability to adapt to you. So the question that I'm going to implore everyone to think about is, do you want to rely on someone else to control your destiny, or do you want to control it yourself? Just think about that when you're making your design. And I'm not discouraging people from making a climb on me climber or from making a ramp bot. I'm just saying, when you are going through these designs, make sure you take into consideration the fact that some people have traction wheels, some people have Mecanum wheels, some people have Omni wheels. Think about bridge balancing back in 2012. How many people slid off a giant bridge? How many people are going to slide off of your ramp bot?
Yep.
This is exactly the conversation we're having on our team now.
Yep. And I think that there's definitely a viable strategy in both of those things when it comes to the climb. But my most valuable suggestion is to read the rules and see what is the scale and what is not the scale, and use that to your strategic advantage instead.
Well, the Q&A session starts tomorrow. I already have it bookmarked. I thought about the ramp bot idea, and we talked about it tonight when we were going through what we learned from this past weekend about strategy dictates design, and we wanted to see what we could do as a rookie team and what we couldn't do as a rookie team with the resources that we have. And that's what we were taught. So we utilized that knowledge right away. And we said, if we're going to scale, we can only scale by pulling ourselves up on the rung. That's the only way we're going to be able to scale as a rookie team. And that's only because there's designs out there from prior years, like you said, Brandi, and there's a lot of knowledge from Stronghold because the bar's not as wide as the one in Stronghold, but the bar's the same type. So
Correct.
There's a lot of designs out there from that year that people can reference.
And I think if people just realize that 3 robots can share the bar, you just need to be really creative on how you do it, and that simplicity and consistency is going to be your most valuable traits.
Agreed.
Well, and there's risk, right? There's a risk. So if you build a robot, and like I said, we're a rookie team. You build a rookie robot. We built the chassis, the stock chassis out of the kit of parts, which it looks like a great chassis. We have to do minimal cutting. Thank God for the robot dimensions for this year. I think we only have to take like 4.5 inches off the length of it so that we fit correctly into that box without the bumpers. But how could we mount something that someone else could climb with us? And you know, we're not building a custom chassis like some manufacturing-backed teams have. You know, like 148 out of Texas. They're a great team, world championship team in the past. Everyone knows who they are. I don't have to name names. But they have a lot more resources than we have. So if we go into and we have an alliance and we say, listen, we can climb, but we can only climb in the middle. Our more experienced teams other than us are looking at, are they taking on trying to pull up from the sides? Because you still have those 2 little sections on the sides that you guys can grapple to.
Absolutely. And
go ahead.
I think one thing that teams are failing to notice also is that the other years where climbing has been important, as we pointed out at our strategies design seminar, this year the robots are so much bigger. You can start at a higher height.
Yeah,
you don't have to fit through the tunnel. You don't have to fit under the low bar this year. So you can build a 5-foot tall robot and only have to reach up 2 feet to grab onto the bar.
That is true.
a lot of people are failing to notice that. And I think that that is something that people are going to want to take into consideration. However, when they're building these tall robots, you also need to take into consideration your center of gravity so that if you decide you're going to try to score on the scale, you don't end up on your back, because no climber is a good climber if you're stuck on your back over by the scale.
We've seen that multiple times in multiple years, no matter what the game has been. Any robot that's on its back can't do anything, especially last year with the rope climb.
Well, this year they can get a free climb, but
Yep.
you don't want to use your free climb on a robot that's on their back, right?
Right. And then, I should mention there are a lot of points to score on the switch and in the hole, in the exchange, right? Like there's a lot of points to be scored over there, right? Like
every alliance needs a vault bot.
Yeah, there is a lot of points over there,
and that's something that a rookie team can do. That's
Agreed.
what I like to, and that's how I think that's what we're going down. I'm not giving away.
I think one thing I can say about that is that the team I'm on now, this will be their 5th year. The last 2 years they were competing in the finals at the state championship, and they've used the same rookie chassis since day one, and they still plan to use it again this year. So something to kind of throw out there, that this team is doing that with that same chassis you guys have. So it's just something to throw out there.
Yeah, I don't think
this actually
it's just
came
a
up.
rookie thing.
This actually came up in some of our discussions. The fact that you could take one of those chassis, slap a piece of plywood on the top of that, and essentially play this game. You could push a block out. The human player can drop a block on the top of the robot. It can run over and slide it off onto the switch. They can sit there and just push blocks out of the portal and get you your levitation, get you your bonus points. I think rookies are going to be very valuable this year.
I tell you what, one thing I've noticed since I've joined First in 2009 is that the higher number teams are really coming out and they're coming after us. It's really unbelievable to see some district events being run by 4-digit teams. And it's really kind of inspiring to see, a team like 5114, the Fenton team, 2 years in a row in the state finals, right? Like, that's a really high number team. I'm not saying that because I'm on their team. I wasn't on their team until recently. But they've been in the state finals 2 years in a row. And that's a really high number team. So just something to kind of point out is it is possible. Everything's possible. Don't let it hold you back, and keep going.
Right, and we, like I said, we had our first meeting tonight. We're talking about what we wanted to do, and we came out with a list, and I left it up to them. As their only head mentor, I said, "Do you guys all believe you guys can do this?" And all the hands went up. And I said, "Is there any worry?" And no one lifted their hand with a worry. And I said, "This is your chance to say, you're worried. There's no judgment zone. It's totally up to you guys what we want to do." And they said, "This is what we want to go with." And I was like, I got an awesome team. I'm lucky. I got a lot of good kids.
You look at a lot of the young teams, and I feel that, First in Michigan has definitely made this switch from looking at rookie teams as helpless little robot builders to teams that can really compete. Like, I think back to when FridgeBot was a rookie. They were famous. People, you guys did amazing your first year, and it was because you had a simple design you built within your means, and you made a reputation for yourself as being a team who someone could cooperate with, who was willing to be flexible, but you also knew what you were good at, and you stood your ground and said, "We believe that we are a valuable contribution in this way." And I think if I can give one advice to rookie teams, it is that. Be humble, be amendable, be reliable, and be willing to learn from these veteran teams. Yes, some of them are here because they've done this forever and they think they know what they're doing, but just because you have a high number doesn't mean that you can do it any better than a person with a rookie number. There are lots of teams who are high resource teams as rookies, and there are lots of teams who are low resource as rookies, and the other way around with veteran teams. So I think that rookie teams have definitely, the rookie teams who have come before you have paved the way so that you can have a really successful season and you can set yourself up to be a robot who's going to walk away with awards and with recognition and possibly with blue banners as long as you keep it up.
And document as you go.
I know
Pictures or it didn't happen.
Hey, I know I have 4 FridgeBot magnets on my refrigerator. That's all I have to say.
I don't have one. I need to get one of those from you, Andrew.
Yeah,
I was just corrected. I was just corrected.
Andrew,
we have seven of them on our fridge.
I think Andrew's got more of them than we do.
Yeah.
And we are getting a new color this year, so look forward to new fridge magnets. But I kind of getting back. Our very first year, I remember another team showed up at Kettering Week 1, and they showed up with their kit of parts box and stuff, and they had it all sitting on their table, and everybody's looking at them going, what are you doing? They're like, well, when do we start assembling the robot? This is Thursday night. Wow. And multiple different teams joined together and helped them. Somebody ran down to Home Depot, bought a piece of plywood, bolted it onto the top of the robot, and they went and competed the rest of the weekend with that robot. In this game, they would actually be a huge help, just pushing blocks around. So we should put a trash can on it so they can pick up noodles? Oh, wrong. Exactly. My bad. Yeah.
My bad. Sorry.
I saw that one too, yeah.
So one of the things that was talked about at Kettering this weekend was, I call it Switchgate. And a couple years ago, it was mentioned that there was a gentleman's agreement that and it could be used this year, that I'll control my Switch, you control your Switch, and this is 2 alliances talking to each other, and we'll just fight over the scale in the center. And I know that's going to come out in the Q&A session tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And one of the things I threw out there was, what if because we don't get any points if we control the blue switch and we're the red alliance, we don't get any points. I think one of the things to battle that would be, if I control that switch, I get those points too. So I look at this game kind of like domination.
I don't think that when people had gentlemen's agreements was back when I think it was Noodle Year, right? The Noodle Agreement.
Noodle Year, yeah.
Well, that was a little bit different. They used the noodles were actually a hindrance on the floor from your robot getting stuck on them. I think that was a little bit different than something that scores points the whole match.
Okay.
Right? So I think...
And I mean, noodles in your zone were worth minuscule amount of points compared to the other things, where this is, huge amounts of points. But I think that, at the beginning, especially, you're going to see so many robots that are working to just maintain their own score, that they're not going to have an opportunity to take over the other person's switch, if you will. I mean, you got to think about that. It's going to take you 9 cubes to get your power-ups.
Right.
For an alliance, that's 3 cubes per robot per match. At the beginning, 3 cubes per robot per match is probably going to be a challenge. So I think that we would only see this strategy come into play later on in the season. And our discussions today, Brad from the Yale team came into the robot space today, and we were chatting with him. And the conclusion that we kind of came up to was that the teams who made the Noodle Agreement made it out of convenience for themselves. So as Andy said, that they didn't have noodles to run over. It was like, hey, listen, I'll keep this area clean for you if you keep that area clean for me.
Gotcha.
It wasn't, I'm not going to score points for myself so that you can score points for yourself. Where I think that there's an advantage to scoring your own points, and there's very little disadvantage to preventing your opponent from scoring their points.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
And I think at a glance, the Switchgate definitely looks appealing in the beginning stages of this game, because you want the cumulative switch and scale points are the second tiebreaker, only second to ranking points. So teams want to be able to have those ranking points to say, listen, you get yours from the beginning, I'll get mine from the beginning, we'll both get 135 points, and then we'll both use our boost power up and double it for 10 seconds. So we're each going to walk out of there with 175 points to raise our ranking. That's definitely a viable strategy for the beginning. And I don't know how First would put a kibosh on that, because even if they make a rule that you can gain ownership for your opposing alliance, I don't necessarily know if teams are going to see the value in doing that.
Right. So one of the we're going to read that section about lifting that we mentioned earlier. I'm going to read it religiously, and then wait for the Q&A about ramp bots. I want to see what happens with that. But one of the initial things when I first saw that
you also want to read Rule R24.
Okay, and Rule R24.
Yep.
So my first idea, and that was before I even picked up my kit of parts, just the first thought that popped into my head after the release video was, I'm gonna go mount 4 actuators driven by motors on each corner of my robot, and I'm gonna lift my bumpers 12 inches off the ground with those pistons, whatever you want to call them, and that's 12 inches. I don't think that's gonna work. I don't, because my robot's still touching.
Again, go read R24 example number 2.
So are you saying that's not a viable option?
Actually, that's illegal to lift your robot above the 12 inches.
Okay.
It is. You need to do a little more reading, Andy.
It's a little more complicated than that, but
you may not lift only your bumpers.
Right.
Bumpers,
I can lift.
You can't lift your robot outside of the bumper zone.
Right. So what I was going to do is put a massive piston in the middle, and a plate, and just lift the whole thing up. Will that work, or won't that work?
Basically like a Stinger from 2012.
But can you lift your bumpers above 7 inches?
12 inches.
But can you lift them above 7 inches? Your bumper zone ends at 7 inches. Your bumpers have to be between 2 and 7 inches off the ground.
But your whole robot has to be 12 inches off the ground.
No, robot design. So you can't extend and push the bumpers up, because that would mean your bumpers now are more than 2 or 3 inches above the bottom of your robot.
But Pete's not saying he's going to lift just his bumpers. He's saying he's going to lift
the whole robot 12 inches.
Robot.
But he's lifting the whole robot with portions of his robot.
Exactly. Excuse me.
So that's a touchy one. So I'm hoping they get some. I hope we get some clarification. So, in these rule updates.
Because you guys understand what I'm trying to do, right? I'm not using pneumatics. I'm not doing that in my first year as a rookie team. Just saying that if I either mounted a single piston that had a plate on it, or 4 pistons one on each corner to lift the robot up where the bumpers clear 12 inches, can I do that?
Based on our interpretation of the rules, taking into consideration that the platform is included in the description of parts of the scale, yes.
I'm gonna go.
Really?
I'm gonna go CAD that after this.
I'm torn. I'm torn with the wording.
That is based on our interpretation of the rules, in the fact that as long as your bumpers remain in a stationary position on your robots, within the designated bumper zone, and your entire robot is lifted 12 inches, or your entire bumpers that are on your robot are lifted 12 inches off of the platform, which is part of the scale, that is perfectly legal.
Yeah. So we were reading, like, we interpreted it as, since your robot is still part of the lifting mechanism, right, that your bumpers would have to go outside of the 7 inches of the bumper zone in order to go 12 inches.
Yeah.
Nope.
But if you count, so if they're
That changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's why we're
I'm
kind of like.
so glad I had all you guys on tonight. I feel so better about myself. I feel so
Now,
much better
granted,
about myself
that
as a rookie mentor.
That is based on our interpretation of the rules, and of course, whatever Q&A and the game design committee decides, that is the end all be all. But based on our interpretation, it is not your robot must be off of the ground. It is that your robot must be fully supported by the scale, and the platform is included as a portion of the scale.
We're going to revisit this next week. And once the Q&A, I'll get you guys all back on, and we'll reread.
There's lots of. I should point everyone to Chief Delphi. Lots of conversation on it. There's a lot of videos from 2007 that are being posted. We've been watching some, trying to figure it out, and then, the question, and then the question comes up: do you lift yourself up with a robot, or do you lift 2 robots up? Do you just lift yourself up? Do you?
You mean if I wait? So I just had a brilliant idea. You just spurred this, Andy.
Oh no!
So I'm gonna go make a ramp bot that I can lift myself 12 inches off the ground and give it enough horsepower to lift 240 pounds, and then I can suspend 2 at the same time.
Well,
but you don't need to do that because you get a levitate.
So what if you just lifted 2 robots up and you stayed on the ground?
Because what if the guy that's going to actually do the climb on the rung falls? It's just.
Well, they don't need to go to the rung at all if you're lifting them both off the ground.
That's true. I'll be the best rookie ever.
I would love for you guys to find a robot that can lift 2 robots. Just saying.
We're going to torque.
Well, I would throw out there. You take a look back at 2015 when we had no width limitation, horizontal limitation. Technically, does the mechanism that lifts the robots have to be attached to your robot, other than with a string?
You're talking deployable robots?
Yeah, they didn't have. There's no width limitation. There's no horizontal limitation in the end game.
Next, you're gonna tell me I should put files on the bottom of my robot and march my way to victory, right? We heard that a couple times at Kettering.
Don't worry.
I'm giving out way too many hints.
Andy's going to deploy a quadcopter at the top of his robot.
You think it's funny? You think it's funny? But I would go watch 2015 and some of the mechanisms they used to stack the bins, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Look
our
at
climber in 2016 was a grappling hook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would go back and look at some previous years on climbing, some previous years on deployment mechanisms. There's lots of crazy stuff out there. It's going to be an interesting year.
And if you can get your hands on some videos from 2015 Okra, the game piece that year was Milk Crate.
Ah, you're right. I remember that. Yep, I do remember that. Oh, that would be hard to come up with, but I'll be looking.
Well, again, I want to thank we went past 45 minutes, but I'll cut it down. I want to thank everyone for coming on, and now you guys aren't going to be able to sleep because you're going to be able to think, but I'm not going to be able to sleep now until I can see that Q&A session tomorrow.
Yep, sleep is for the weak. Welcome to
Robotics. I want to thank everyone
for April.
Coming. Well, no, I plan on going to Worlds, so that's May.
All right. Well, before we leave, Pete, I have to follow up on our math joke earlier.
Okay.
It's all fun and games till somebody divides by 0.
That's not nice. It's just not nice, Andrew. So as you guys sign out, tell us your first name, last name, the team you're with, and how we can follow your team online. We'll start with you, Andrew, please.
Sure. Andrew Spiece, formerly of Trucktown Thunder. I am now with Titanium Tigers, 5114 out of Fenton High School. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, our website, fentonrobotics.com.
Well done, sir. Well done. Scott, you're next.
Hey, this is Scott Stapp from Team FridgeBot. You can follow us on Facebook at Corona Schools Robotic Competition Team 5084. We're also on Instagram under FridgeBot and we'll look forward to seeing you on the field this year.
Maybe week 0. Maybe week 0. We'll see what happens. And nonetheless, the infamous Brandi Bollinger, please take us out.
My name is Brandi Bollinger, and I am co-lead mentor of Team 2337, the Engineers out of Grand Blanc, Michigan. You can follow us at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at team2337.com.
Thank you, everyone, for giving me an hour of your time on a very tired Monday night. But we're going to power up and power through, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Pete.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
Again, I'd like to thank Andrew, I'd like to thank Scott, and I'd like to thank Brandi for coming on the podcast tonight, giving us their time. We're in the beginning of build season, so thank you for listening to the RoboZone podcast. Get to building up your robots. Get ready for some competition. If you want to be interviewed for the podcast, let me know. Thank you for listening.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world. Thanks for listening to the RoboZone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at RoboZoneTV.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.